The phone rang at 11:47 p.m., and I knew before answering that my life was about to change forever. Trent? Sorry, honey, too much work tonight. You know how these quarterly reports get? Elena's voice carried that breathless quality I'd been hearing more often lately. My wife of 15 years, the woman who used to call me from the grocery store just to ask if I preferred chunky or smooth peanut butter, hadn't answered my calls all evening. I'd tried her cell phone 7 times. Each call went straight to voicemail. The first time, I figured she was in a meeting. By the 4th call, I was imagining car accidents. By the 7th, I was planning funeral arrangements. Elena, where the hell have you been? I called. I know. My phone was on silent. We had this emergency vendor meeting that ran way over, and you know how Roger gets when we're behind schedule. Roger Martinez was Elena's boss at Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, where she'd worked as a senior account manager for the past 8 years. Roger was also a 62-year-old grandfather who went to bed every night at 9:30 sharp and hadn't worked past 6 p.m. since the Clinton administration. Yeah, let's go for round 5, came a male voice in the background, followed by laughter that definitely wasn't Roger's gravelly chuckle. The voice was younger, smoother, with that particular confidence that comes from expensive suits and even more expensive dental work. Elena giggled, actually giggled, like she was 22 instead of 41. Who was that? I asked, though my stomach already knew the answer. Oh, that's just Miles from the print vendor. He's helping us sort out the Johnson campaign materials. You remember Miles Parker, right? From Precision Graphics? I remembered Miles Parker. 6'2", perfectly styled hair, and the kind of smile that made him look like he was always in on a joke you weren't getting. He'd been to our house twice for business dinners, both times managing to compliment Elena's cooking, her dress, and her brilliant marketing instincts while barely acknowledging I existed. Round 5 of what exactly? What? Oh, that. We're reviewing the 5th revision of the Johnson materials. You know how picky they are about color schemes. The lie came so smoothly, I almost believed it. Almost. Elena, it's nearly midnight. What print shop is open this late? We're at the office, Trent. Miles brought the samples here. Look, I'm exhausted, and I still have to drive home. Can we talk about this tomorrow? She hung up before I could respond. I sat in our kitchen, staring at my phone, feeling something cold and sharp settle in my chest. 23 years I'd been running Walker Specialty Printing, building it from a 2-man operation in my garage to a 15-employee company with clients across 3 states. I knew every print vendor in the region, and I knew their schedules. Precision Graphics closed at 6 p.m. sharp, and Miles Parker lived 40 minutes away from Elena's office. But what really convinced me wasn't the logistics. It was the laugh. Elena hadn't laughed like that, carefree, flirtatious, genuinely delighted, in over 2 years. Not since her mother passed away and left her that inheritance she'd been so secretive about. Not since she'd started working late 3 nights a week. Not since she'd begun guarding her phone like it contained state secrets. I walked to our bedroom, where Elena's laptop sat closed on her nightstand. She'd changed the password 6 months ago, claiming the old one wasn't secure enough. I tried her birthday, our anniversary, her mother's maiden name. Nothing. The house felt different now, like I was seeing it through new eyes. The fresh flowers Elena had started buying every week, claiming they brightened her mood. The new perfume that appeared in our bathroom, something expensive and sophisticated that she wore to work, but never for me. The way she'd been going to the gym 4 times a week, coming home energized and glowing. I'd attributed all of it to her grief process, her way of coping with loss and finding herself again. What an idiot I'd been. My phone buzzed with a text from Elena. Home in 30, love you, love you. 2 words that used to mean everything, now feeling like a slap across the face. I made coffee and sat at our kitchen table, waiting. The same table where we'd planned our future 15 years ago, where we'd discussed buying this house, where we'd held hands during her mother's final illness. Now it felt like evidence of my own stupidity. Elena's car pulled into our driveway at 12:43 a.m. I watched through the kitchen window as she sat in the driver's seat for nearly 5 minutes, probably checking her appearance, maybe texting Miles one last time before coming inside to face her husband. When she finally walked through the door, she looked perfect. Hair slightly mussed in that way that suggested casual professionalism rather than passionate encounters. Makeup refreshed, but not overdone. Clothes wrinkled just enough to support her story of a long, difficult meeting. Hey, baby, she said, kissing my cheek. Sorry about tonight. You know how these timeline crunches get. How's the Johnson account coming along? Oh, same old headaches. But Miles thinks we'll have everything sorted by Friday. Miles seems very dedicated to customer service. Elena paused, her hand on the refrigerator door. What's that supposed to mean? Nothing, just impressive that he'd work this late to help out a client. He's very professional. Professional. Right. I'm going to bed, Elena announced. This day completely wiped me out. She headed upstairs, and I heard the shower running 10 minutes later. A shower at 1 a.m. after a business meeting. Because nothing says professional consultation like needing to wash off the evening's activities. I stayed in the kitchen until 3 a.m., drinking coffee and planning my next moves. Because that's what this was now, a game of moves and counter-moves, strategy and deception. Elena had made her choice, and now I had to make mine. The old Trent would have confronted her directly, demanded the truth, maybe even called Miles to scream threats into his voicemail. The old Trent believed in honest communication and working through problems together. But the old Trent was gone, ruined by a phone call and a man's laughter in the background. The new Trent understood that information was power, that patience was a weapon, and that revenge was a dish best served with documentation. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I lay next to my cheating wife, listening to her breathe, and methodically planned my investigation. Elena left for work at 7:30 a.m. with a kiss on my forehead and a promise to be home by 6 for dinner. Such a thoughtful wife, already planning her alibi for the next 12 hours. By 8 a.m., I was in my office at Walker Specialty Printing, but my mind wasn't on business. I called my accountant, Jim Morrison, not the late rock star, just a methodical CPA who'd been handling my books for 10 years. Jim, I need you to pull all our vendor contracts from the past year, specifically anything involving Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. Everything okay, Trent? Just want to review our business relationships, make sure everything's above board. What I found in those contracts made my pressure spike. Elena's company had been steering business to Precision Graphics for 8 months, even though our own company could have handled most of the work at better rates. Elena knew our capabilities better than anyone. She'd been helping me with marketing strategy since we got married. But instead of sending business to her own husband's company, she'd been funneling contracts worth over $200,000 to Miles Parker. I called Detective Ray Kowalski, an old high school friend who worked financial crimes for the city police. Ray, hypothetical question. If someone was steering business to a vendor they had a personal relationship with, what kind of legal issues might that create? Depends on the company's conflict of interest policies. Could be anything from a reprimand to criminal charges if there's kickbacks involved. Why? You got something cooking? Just curious about best practices. Uh-huh. Trent, if you're thinking about doing something stupid, remember that revenge fantasies and actual revenge are two very different things. One keeps you awake at night, the other keeps you awake in prison. Thanks for the advice, Ray. I spent the next 4 hours reviewing Elena's credit card statements from our joint account. She'd been careful, but not careful enough. Lunch charges at Marcello's, the expensive Italian place downtown, always on days when Miles had meetings with Pinnacle. 2 charges at Victoria's Secret in the past month. A hotel bar tab from last Tuesday when Elena claimed she was working late on the Peterson campaign. The evidence was building, but I needed more. I needed absolute certainty before I made my move. At 2 p.m., I drove to Marcello's and asked to speak with the manager, Tony Castellano. Tony and I had done business together. I'd printed his menus and promotional materials for 3 years. Tony, I'm planning a surprise for my wife, Elena. She's been coming here for business lunches, and I wanted to know if you could help me arrange something special. Oh, Elena. Beautiful woman. She's here every Tuesday with that tall guy, Miles. They always sit at table 12 by the window. Very romantic couple. Romantic couple. The words hit like a physical blow. They seem very close, I managed. Oh yes, very much in love. He proposed to her last week, actually, right here at their usual table. She said yes, of course. We gave them champagne on the house. The world tilted sideways. Proposed. Elena was engaged to another man while still married to me. That's wonderful news, I said, somehow keeping my voice steady. Will you be joining them for a celebration dinner? I could arrange something special. I'll have to check my schedule. I drove home in a daze, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Engaged. She was planning to leave me for Miles, probably after she figured out how to maximize her divorce settlement. Elena arrived home at 6:15, carrying takeout from our favorite Chinese restaurant. Sorry I'm late, honey. Thought I'd save us both some trouble and just pick up dinner. And she was wearing a new necklace, something delicate and expensive that I'd never seen before. Her engagement ring from Miles, probably, worn as a necklace to hide it from her husband. How was your day? She asked, settling across from me at our kitchen table. Productive. Yours? Oh, same old chaos. But I think we're finally making progress on the Johnson account. That's great. Miles must be a real asset to the project. Elena's chopsticks paused halfway to her mouth. He's very professional. I'm sure he is. Must be nice working with someone so dedicated. Trent, you're acting strange. Is everything okay? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. The woman I'd loved for 15 years, who'd held my hand through my father's funeral, who'd celebrated every business milestone with me, who'd promised to love me in sickness and health. She was a stranger. Everything's fine, Elena, just thinking about the future. What about the future? Oh, change is coming, new opportunities, fresh starts. Elena smiled, and for just a moment, I saw something calculating in her expression. Changes can be good, can't they? They can be, especially when people get what they deserve. After dinner, Elena went upstairs to catch up on emails. I cleaned the kitchen and made my decision. No more gathering evidence. No more hoping I was wrong. It was time to take action. I called my lawyer, David Chen. Damn, I couldn't use that name. I called my lawyer, David Peterson, and scheduled an emergency appointment for the next morning. Then I called Jim Morrison again. Jim, I need you to do something for me first thing tomorrow. I want you to review all our business accounts and change the access protocols. Remove Elena Walker from all financial authorizations. Trent, that's a pretty big step. Are you sure? I'm sure. Also, I want you to prepare a complete financial audit of our business relationship with Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. Every contract, every payment, every expense report. This sounds like you're preparing for litigation. I'm preparing for war. The next morning, Elena left for work with her usual kiss and promise to be home early. By 9 a.m., I was in David Peterson's office, laying out the evidence of her affair and the questionable business practices. Trent, this is solid evidence of adultery, which will definitely impact the divorce proceedings. But this business relationship between her company and Miles Parker's company could be even more significant. If there's any evidence of kickbacks or financial impropriety, we could be looking at criminal charges. I don't want her in prison, David. I just want her out of my life and away from my business. Fair enough. But we need to be strategic about this. If you move too fast, she might destroy evidence or transfer assets. We need to be methodical. Methodical. That word would become my mantra for the next 2 weeks. By noon, Elena's access to our business accounts was revoked. By 2 p.m., Jim had identified $47,000 in questionable expenses that Elena had approved for Pinnacle Marketing Solutions over the past 6 months. At 3:30 p.m., Elena called me, her voice tight with panic. Trent, there's something wrong with my company credit card. It was declined at lunch, and when I called the bank, they said my access had been revoked. That's strange. Maybe there's a system glitch. I'll look into it. This is embarrassing, Trent. I'm sitting here with a client, and I can't even pay for lunch. I'm sure Miles can cover it. He seems like a generous guy. Silence on the other end of the line. I'll call you back, she said finally. But she didn't call back. Instead, she came home at 4 p.m., her face flushed with anger. What the hell is going on with our accounts, Trent? I made some changes to our financial protocols. For security purposes. Security purposes? You locked me out of our own business accounts. Elena, you don't work for Walker Specialty Printing. You work for Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. I saw no reason why you should have access to our internal financial systems. I'm your wife. Yes, you are. And as my wife, you have access to our personal accounts. Our business accounts are a different matter. Elena stared at me like she was seeing me for the first time. This is about last night, isn't it? About me working late? This is about appropriate business practices and financial security. You don't trust me? I met her eyes steadily. Should I? Elena turned and walked upstairs without another word. An hour later, I heard her on the phone in our bedroom, her voice low and urgent. Probably calling Miles, trying to figure out how this would affect their plans. Let them plan. I was 3 steps ahead now, and I intended to stay that way. That evening, Elena barely spoke during dinner. She kept checking her phone, typing quick messages, her anxiety growing more obvious by the hour. Elena, is everything okay? You seem distracted. I'm fine. Just work stress. Anything I can help with? She looked at me with something that might have been hatred. I don't think so, Trent. I think you've helped enough for one day. After she went to bed, I sat in my kitchen and planned phase 2 of my strategy. Elena wanted to play games? Fine. But she was about to learn that her husband hadn't built a successful business by being naive or trusting. The war had begun, and I intended to win. 3 days after I locked Elena out of the business accounts, she made her first real mistake. I was having lunch at Murphy's Tavern, a dive bar near our shop where I'd been eating the same turkey sandwich for 10 years, when I spotted Elena's silver BMW in the parking lot of the Marriott across the street. She was supposed to be in a client meeting with the Richardson Group, a meeting that, according to her calendar, was taking place 20 miles away in downtown. I paid my check and walked across the street. The Marriott's bar was dimly lit, designed for business travelers and discreet conversations. Elena sat in a corner booth, leaning across the table toward Miles Parker, their hands intertwined like teenagers on a first date. I ordered a beer at the bar and positioned myself where I could hear their conversation. "Can't keep doing this," Elena was saying. "Trent's getting suspicious. He locked me out of the business accounts yesterday." "Baby, relax. We knew this might happen. That's why we moved the timeline up." "But what if he finds out about the money?" "He won't. The transfers look completely legitimate. Just normal business expenses between your company and mine." "Transfers? What transfers?" "Miles, I'm scared. If Trent discovers what we've been doing, he won't. And even if he does, what's he going to do? You're his wife. He's not going to press charges against his own wife." "You don't know Trent. When he gets angry, really angry, he doesn't let things go." Miles laughed, the same confident sound I'd heard on the phone that night. "Elena, your husband prints wedding invitations and business cards. I'm not exactly trembling in fear." That's when I decided to introduce myself. I walked over to their booth, beer in hand, and slid into the seat next to Elena. "Mind if I join you? This looks like an interesting business meeting." Elena went white. Miles just stared at me like I was a ghost. "Trent," Elena stammered, "what are you doing here?" "Having lunch, same as you, apparently, though I thought you were meeting with the Richardson Group today." We finished early. Miles and I were just discussing the Peterson campaign." "The Peterson campaign, right." I took a sip of my beer and looked directly at Miles. "You know, Miles, I've been thinking about our business relationship. Elena's been steering a lot of work your way lately." Miles found his voice. "Elena's company has very high standards. We've worked hard to meet their expectations." "I'm sure you have. Elena's always been very thorough in her business relationships." Elena's hand was shaking as she reached for her wine glass. "Trent, maybe we should discuss this at home." "Why? Miles is part of this conversation, isn't he? After all, he seems to know a lot about our personal finances." "I don't know what you're talking about," Miles said, but his voice had lost its confidence. "The transfers, Miles. Elena mentioned transfers. Business expenses between her company and yours. I'd love to hear more about those." Elena stood up abruptly. "I need to use the restroom." She walked away, leaving me alone with her lover. Miles tried to maintain his composure. "Look, Trent, I think there's been some misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding. I know exactly what's going on. The question is, what are we going to do about it?" "What do you want?" "I want you to stay away from my wife." Miles leaned back in the booth, some of his arrogance returning. "That's between Elena and me, and Elena and you. I'm just a vendor providing services to her company." "Services? Is that what we're calling it?" "Elena's a grown woman. She can make her own choices." "You're right. She can. And I can make mine." Elena returned from the restroom, her makeup freshened but her hands still shaking. "I think we should leave," she said to Miles. "Actually," I said, "I think we should talk, all three of us, about the future." "There's nothing to talk about," Elena said. "Sure there is. Like your engagement." Both Elena and Miles froze. "Tony Castellano at Marcello's sends his congratulations, by the way. He's very excited about your upcoming wedding." Elena sank back into the booth like she'd been punched. "Trent," she whispered. "So here's what's going to happen," I continued, keeping my voice calm and reasonable. "Elena, you're going to come home tonight, and we're going to have a very honest conversation about our marriage. Miles, you're going to end your business relationship with Pinnacle Marketing Solutions, effective immediately." "You can't dictate who my company does business with," Miles said. "Actually, I can. See, I've been doing some research into those transfers Elena mentioned. Turns out steering business to vendors in exchange for personal benefits is considered fraud in most jurisdictions, especially when the person doing the steering is married to someone who could have provided the same services at better rates." Miles went pale. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to prove anything, Miles. I just have to raise questions. Questions with Elena's boss, questions with your company's compliance department, questions with the Better Business Bureau." "You're threatening us," Elena said. "I'm explaining consequences. There's a difference." I finished my beer and stood up. "Elena, I'll see you at home. Miles, it's been enlightening." I walked away, leaving them to contemplate their situation. That evening, Elena came home at 6 p.m. sharp, probably the first time she'd been on time in months. She found me in the kitchen, making dinner like it was any other night. "We need to talk," she said. "Yes, we do. Trent, I never meant for this to happen. But it did happen. The question is, what happens next?" Elena sat down at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd planned our future 15 years ago. "I love him," she said quietly. Those 3 words hit me harder than all the evidence, all the lies, all the betrayal, because they meant this wasn't just an affair. It wasn't just closeness or excitement or a midlife crisis. She loved him. "How long?" I asked. 8 months. "And the money?" Elena looked down at her hands. Miles needed help with some cash flow problems. I helped arrange some contracts. "How much?" $47,000. The exact amount Jim had identified. At least she was finally being honest. "Elena, you committed fraud. You stole money from your company to help your boyfriend." "It wasn't stealing. The work got done. By a company charging 30% more than market rates for work, my company could have done better and faster. I couldn't send the business to you. That would have been a conflict of interest." The irony of that statement was breathtaking. "So instead, you sent it to the man you're sleeping with. That's much more ethical." Elena started crying. "I know how this looks, Trent, but I never meant to hurt you." "But you did hurt me. You've been lying to me for 8 months. You got engaged to another man while you were still married to me. You stole money to help him." "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to choose, him or me, your marriage or your affair, but you can't have both." Elena wiped her eyes. "And if I choose him?" "Then we get divorced. You repay the money you stole, and you deal with whatever consequences come from your business practices." "You'd really turn me in? Your own wife?" "Elena, you stopped being my wife the moment you said yes to his proposal." She sat in silence for several minutes, processing the reality of her situation. "I need time to think," she said finally. "You have until tomorrow night. After that, I make decisions for both of us." Elena went upstairs, and I heard her on the phone again, probably telling Miles about our conversation. Let her. The time for secrets was over. The next evening, Elena came home with 2 suitcases. "I've made my choice," she said. "And?" "I'm moving in with Miles. I want a divorce." I felt something inside me break, but I kept my voice steady. "Okay, we'll start the paperwork tomorrow." "Trent, I'm sorry. I really am." "I know you are, Elena, but sorry doesn't fix this." She walked toward the door, then turned back. "What about the money? The business with Pinnacle?" "That depends on how cooperative you are during the divorce proceedings." "Are you threatening me again?" "I'm explaining consequences. There's still a difference." Elena left, and I was alone in the house we'd shared for 15 years. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The real war was just beginning. Word travels fast in a town of 50,000 people, especially when it involves a successful local businessman and his cheating wife. By the end of the week, everyone knew that Elena Walker had moved in with Miles Parker, and the reactions were exactly what I'd expected. Our friends split into camps like we were running for office. The first casualty was Tom Bradley, my best friend since college and the best man at my wedding. Tom called me 3 days after Elena moved out. "Trent, man, I heard about you and Elena. I'm really sorry." "Thanks, Tom. I appreciate that." "Listen, I was talking to Jennifer about this whole situation, and we think maybe you're being a little harsh." Jennifer was Tom's wife, Elena's former maid of honor, and apparently now Elena's advocate. "Harsh how?" "Well, threatening to have Elena arrested for fraud. That seems like too much for a marriage that was probably already in trouble." "Tom, she stole $47,000 to help her boyfriend. That's not a marriage problem. That's a crime." "But she's your wife, man. You don't send your wife to prison over money." "She's my soon-to-be ex-wife, and she made her choices. Jennifer thinks Elena was probably just lonely. You've been working a lot lately, and maybe she felt neglected." I felt my temper rising. "So it's my fault that Elena decided to sleep with her vendor and steal money to help him?" "Nobody's saying it's your fault, but maybe you could have been more attentive, more romantic." "Tom, whose side are you on here?" Silence on the other end of the line. "I'm not on anybody's side, Trent. I just think this whole thing is getting out of hand. Elena made a mistake, but destroying her life isn't going to fix your marriage." "My marriage is already destroyed. Elena destroyed it when she got engaged to another man." "Look, Jennifer and I are having a barbecue this weekend. Why don't you come over? We can talk about this like adults." "Will Elena be there?" "Well, yes. We invited both of you. We're hoping you two can work things out." "Tom, Elena and I are getting divorced. There's nothing to work out. Just think about it, okay? For old time's sake. I hung up feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. My best friend was asking me to have dinner with my cheating wife and pretend everything was fine. The next call came from Sarah Mitchell, Elena's college roommate and the woman who'd introduced us 15 years ago. Trent, I just talked to Elena. She's devastated. She should be. Actions have consequences. She told me what happened with the business contracts. She admits she made mistakes, but she's willing to pay the money back. Isn't that enough? Sarah, she didn't make mistakes. She made choices. For 8 months, she chose to lie to me, steal money, and plan a future with another man. But she's sorry. She realizes now that Miles isn't the man she thought he was. That got my attention. What do you mean? Well, when Elena told him about the divorce and the money situation, he got cold feet. He's worried about his business reputation, his relationship with his ex-wife, his kids. He told Elena maybe they should take a break until things settle down. So Miles was abandoning Elena now that the situation had consequences. How predictable. That's between Elena and Miles. Trent, she wants to come home. She wants to try to fix your marriage. It's too late for that. Is it? You loved her for 15 years. Doesn't that count for something? Yes, it does. It counts for why this hurts so much. She made one mistake. 8 months of lies and theft isn't one mistake, Sarah. It's a pattern of choices. Sarah sighed. Jennifer Bradley called me. They're having a barbecue this weekend, and they really want you to come. Elena will be there, and maybe you two can talk. Everyone's really invested in this reconciliation, aren't they? We just want you both to be happy. Then you should want me to be divorced. The barbecue was Saturday afternoon. I didn't go, but I heard about it from my neighbor, Detective Ray Kowalski, who lived across the street from the Bradleys. Quite a party over there, Ray said, leaning against my fence while I worked in my garden. Saw Elena's car and that fancy BMW that belongs to her boyfriend. Miles was there? Oh yeah. Whole thing looked like some kind of intervention. Your friend Tom kept looking over here like he expected you to show up. How did it end? Well, around 8 o'clock, Elena came storming out, crying. Miles followed her, and they had a screaming match in the driveway. Something about him being a coward and not standing by her when things got tough. And then? Elena drove off alone. Miles went back inside, probably to explain to your friends why their reconciliation plan didn't work. Sunday morning, Tom called again. Trent, you should have been there yesterday. I heard it didn't go well. Elena's a mess, man. Miles basically dumped her in front of everyone. She's lost her marriage, her boyfriend, and probably her job when this fraud thing comes out. Tom, I didn't force Elena to steal money. I didn't force her to have an affair. I didn't force her to get engaged to another man. She made those choices. But you're making the choice to destroy her life instead of forgiving her. I'm making the choice to protect myself and my business. From your own wife? From my own wife. Tom was quiet for a moment. Jennifer and I have been talking. We think maybe we need to step back from this situation. What does that mean? It means we can't watch you destroy someone we care about. Elena's been our friend for 15 years too. So you're choosing her over me. We're choosing not to choose. We're staying out of it. That is choosing, Tom. You're choosing to abandon the friend who got betrayed instead of supporting him. Trent, you're not the same person you were a month ago. You've become cold, calculating, vindictive. That's not the guy I've been friends with for 20 years. You're right. I'm not the same person. The old Trent was naive enough to trust people who didn't deserve it. And the new Trent is going to end up alone. Tom hung up, and I realized he was probably right. But I'd rather be alone than surrounded by people who thought I should forgive my wife for stealing money to help her boyfriend. The final blow came Tuesday morning, when I arrived at the office to find my foreman, Mike Rodriguez. Shit, I couldn't use that name either. My foreman, Mike Sullivan, waiting for me with a grim expression. Boss, we need to talk. Mike had been with me for 8 years, working his way up from press operator to production manager. I trusted him completely. What's up, Mike? It's about Mrs. Walker, about this whole situation. What about it? Some of the guys are uncomfortable. They like Mrs. Walker. She's always been good to them, remembered their kids' names, brought cookies at Christmas. Mike, Elena doesn't work here. She works for Pinnacle Marketing Solutions. But she's still your wife, and word is getting around that you're trying to have her arrested. I'm trying to protect this company from fraud. Boss, I've been thinking about this, and maybe there's another way to handle it. Maybe we could just let it go, chalk it up to a marriage falling apart, and move on. I stared at Mike, feeling the ground shift under my feet. Are you asking me to ignore the fact that my wife stole money from our clients? I'm asking you to consider that pressing charges against Mrs. Walker is going to hurt this company's reputation. People are going to think you're vindictive, cruel. And if I don't press charges, people are going to think they can steal from us without consequences. Mike looked uncomfortable. Boss, I've been offered a job at Precision Graphics. Miles Parker called me yesterday. Miles Parker offered you a job? Yeah. Better money, better benefits. He said he's expanding his operation and needs experienced people. And you're considering it? I'm considering my options. This whole situation has made things weird around here. The guys don't know whose side they're supposed to be on. They're supposed to be on the side of the company that pays their salaries. That's just it, boss. They're not sure this company is going to survive all this drama. Mike left my office, and I sat alone, realizing that Elena and Miles weren't just destroying my marriage. They were destroying my business, my friendships, and my reputation, but I wasn't going to let them win. It was time for the final phase of my plan. I spent the next week preparing for war. Real war, not the preliminary skirmishes I'd been fighting. First, I hired a private investigator named Janet Hayes, a former police detective who specialized in corporate fraud. Janet was thorough, professional, and completely unsentimental about marriage, betrayal, or revenge. Mr. Walker, I've reviewed the financial documents you provided. Your wife and Mr. Parker have been running a sophisticated kickback scheme for 8 months. The evidence is overwhelming. How sophisticated? They created false invoices, inflated project costs, and split the overcharges. Your wife would approve payments for work that was never done or materials that were never delivered. Mr. Parker would keep 60% and funnel 40% back to your wife through cash payments. How much total? Based on what I can document, approximately $127,000. 3 times more than Elena had admitted to. My wife wasn't just a cheating spouse, she was a professional thief. There's more, Janet continued. Mr. Parker has been using similar schemes with 2 other marketing companies. This isn't a crime of passion, it's a business model. What about Elena? Your wife opened a separate bank account 6 months ago. She's been depositing cash regularly, building up what looks like an escape fund, currently has about $31,000. Elena had been planning to leave me for months, stealing money to finance her new life with Miles. I want all of this documented and ready for prosecution. Mr. Walker, are you sure? Prosecuting your wife is going to be emotionally difficult and publicly messy. My wife stopped being my wife when she decided to steal from me. Now she's just another criminal. Janet nodded. I'll have everything ready by Friday. Wednesday evening, Elena called me. Trent, we need to talk. I thought we'd said everything we needed to say. Miles broke up with me. I heard. He said the legal situation was too complicated. He doesn't want to risk his business or his custody arrangement with his kids. Sounds like Miles is smarter than I gave him credit for. Trent, I made a terrible mistake. I know that now. But maybe we can work things out. Elena, are you calling because you love me or because Miles dumped you? Silence on the other end. I'm calling because I realize what I've lost, what I threw away. What you threw away was our marriage. What you lost was your meal ticket. That's not fair. Fair? Elena, you stole over $100,000 from your company to help your boyfriend. You got engaged to another man while married to me. You planned to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for. And now you want to talk about fair? 100,000? Trent, that's not true. It was only 47,000. According to the forensic accountant I hired, it was $127,000, and that's just what we can document. Elena's voice became very small. Trent, what are you planning to do? I'm planning to have you arrested for fraud, embezzlement, and conspiracy. The district attorney is very interested in your case. You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. You're my soon-to-be ex-wife, and you're a criminal. Trent, please, I'll pay everything back. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is justice. What you want is revenge. Sometimes they are the same thing. Thursday morning, I met with District Attorney Patricia Williams. Patricia was a no-nonsense prosecutor who'd built her career on white-collar crime cases. Mr. Walker, this is an excellent case. The evidence is overwhelming, the amounts are significant, and the pattern of behavior shows clear criminal intent. When will you file charges? Tomorrow morning. We'll arrest Mrs. Walker at her workplace. Mr. Parker will be arrested simultaneously at his office. What kind of sentences are we looking at? For amounts this large, probably 3 to 5 years for your wife, 5 to 7 for Mr. Parker since he was the ringleader. 3 to 5 years. Elena would be 46 when she got out of prison, her career destroyed, her reputation ruined, her life in shambles. Perfect. Friday morning, I was in my office when the call started. First, Tom Bradley. Trent, what the hell have you done? Elena was just arrested at her office, in front of everyone. I did what I said I was going to do. This is insane. You're sending your wife to prison? I'm sending a thief to prison. The fact that she used to be my wife is irrelevant. You've lost your mind. Tom hung up. Next, Sarah Mitchell. Trent, I just heard about Elena. This is going too far. This is justice, Sarah. This is revenge, and you know it. Maybe, but it's also the right thing to do. The right thing to do would be to forgive her. The right thing to do is to make sure she faces consequences for her actions. Sarah hung up too. The third call was from Elena herself, calling from the police station. Trent, they arrested me, in front of my entire office, my boss, my co-workers, everyone. Good. Now everyone knows what you really are. How can you be so cruel? I loved you for 15 years. No, Elena. You used me for 15 years. You loved what I could provide, the house, the lifestyle, the security, but you never loved me. That's not true? If it's not true, then explain Miles. Explain the money. Explain the lies. Elena was crying now. I made mistakes, but this punishment doesn't fit the crime. I disagree. I think it fits perfectly. I'll never forgive you for this. Good. That makes us even. The news hit the local paper Saturday morning. Local marketing executive arrested in fraud scheme. The article detailed Elena's arrest, the charges against her, and the estimated amount of money involved. My phone rang all weekend. Reporters, friends, business associates, all wanting to know my side of the story. I gave the same answer to everyone. I'm cooperating fully with law enforcement to ensure that justice is served. Monday morning, Miles Parker was found lifeless in his apartment, apparently from a drug overdose. The note he left behind confessed to the fraud scheme and apologized to his children. Miles had chosen the coward's way out, leaving Elena to face the consequences alone. Tuesday, Elena's lawyer called me. Mr. Walker, my client would like to discuss a plea agreement. I'm not the prosecutor. Talk to the district attorney. Mrs. Walker is willing to plead guilty and make full restitution in exchange for a reduced sentence. That's between her and the state. Mr. Walker, she's your wife. Surely you don't want to see her go to prison for 5 years. She's my soon-to-be ex-wife. And yes, I do want to see her go to prison. This is about revenge, isn't it? This is about consequences. Elena pled guilty the following week and was sentenced to 4 years in state prison. She would serve at least 2.5 years before being eligible for parole. The day of her sentencing, I sat in the courtroom and watched as my wife of 15 years was led away in handcuffs. She looked at me one last time before the bailiff took her away. Her eyes were full of hatred, but also something else. Fear. Because she finally understood who she'd been married to all along. Not the naive, trusting man she'd thought she could manipulate and betray, but someone much more dangerous. Someone who kept his word, no matter what the cost. Someone who understood that revenge wasn't just about getting even, it was about making sure that justice was served, consequences were faced, and betrayal was punished. Elena had wanted to play games with my life, my business, and my future. Now she could spend the next 4 years thinking about how that game had ended, and I could finally move on with my life, knowing that I'd fought for what was right, even when everyone else told me to forgive and forget. Some things shouldn't be forgiven, some things shouldn't be forgotten, and some people need to learn that actions have consequences, no matter who they are or how long you've loved them. Elena learned that lesson the hard way, but she learned it.